In May 2008, Lexton Landcare celebrated 20 years of Landcare achievements with a weekend of activities in and around the area. Working together, 20 years of Landcare at Lexton, gives us all a picture of what has been done and how we celebrated 20 years of great work. We use Landcare as our tool to repair and improve the local landscape. Repair and improvement has always been a real measure of Landcare's success. However, we've never been under any illusions as to the scale of the task before us. At our foundation meeting in 1988, we described the forming of the Landcare Group as simply another step in a 30-year plan to get those repairs done. Our Landcare philosophy is about getting the best for the land to repair, improve and manage it, and the best for the people who care for it, in knowledge, skills and support. The 20-year celebration combined reflection, achievement and celebration of our landscape and the people in it. From early 2008, international artist and committee member Murray Walker organised for a series of renowned artists to capture the Lexton landscape on canvas. In effect, we brought new people into our landscape and let them interpret it as they saw fit. The result was a fabulous art show on the Friday evening of the celebration weekend, featuring the work of 10 artists and opened by the director of the Ballarat Regional Art Gallery, Gordon Morrison.
Well, what you have in this hall are works by 10 of Australia's leading artists, and that's an extraordinary thing in its own right. That in a local community hall in sort of central Victoria, you've got works by some of the major artists of this nation.
I'm particularly interested in trees that are left in cultivated sort of landscapes. Like one of my wood engravings is of a red gum sort of sitting alone in a paddock, and why has that tree survived when obviously others have been, cut down to make way for, crops or grazing land. So the particular notion of an individual tree really appeals to me.
Oh, Lexton, I suppose, is, for me, it's always constantly returning to the country, which is something I do quite often. Not because out of habit, out of really love of being in the country, getting out of the city fundamentally. My childhood was brought up in central Victoria, and coming up to Lexton or Clunes or any part of the country, which I travel quite a bit, it's the freeing from the urban chaos, I suppose, and the idea of being freed by nature, the fresh air, all those things that you love.
The old homestead to me is perhaps like an old wooden toy that a father's made for a grandchild. It's been used, it's been bashed around, it's been decayed, it's seen generations use that little object, that toy. And I collect toys, that's why I'm saying it. So you end up with an object that's got all the wear and tear of time and generation, and that's what that building has.
On the Saturday, we ran a series of tours looking at what had been achieved to date through Landcare. Bird expert Tim Hunt showed the people a diverse array of birds that are supported by the many types of native vegetation in and around Lexton.
This is a good example in front of you of what you normally come across when you're in woodland or forest. As you can hear by just the different sounds, there are a lot of different types of birds here.
Tim Hunt is a legend in the bird field and has spent a significant amount of time in the Lexton area, making field recordings of 180 different birds for the Atlas of Australian Birds. We utilised the Catchment Management Authority catchment model to show how actions upstream can impact on downstream communities. At the foot of the Benmore Range, we viewed the salinity and soil erosion control works on Robert and Lynn Bright's property. While along Forest Road, we saw further soil erosion, rabbit control and pasture works. At Ben More, it is easy to track the history of salinity control from the initial plans to focus on the hills that drive the recharge, to our current efforts in stopping salt reaching the streams by working on discharge sites, streamside planting and the improved water use across the broadest landscape possible, particularly through perennial pastures. This approach, and probably our recently drier times, has seen us reduce salt inflows into the Betbet Creek by 50%, particularly through the work of the National Action Plan for Dryland Salinity. The soil conservation work at the Brights shows how the headwaters of most of the main creeks in the area have now been stabilised, while downstream the bed and banks have been fenced and revegetated.
You think we could go down and push this erosion in? I said, if the kids will like it, have a look at it. And I said, we'll put a bank up around the top, and I said, we'll plant it out with trees. So anyway, we done that, and we got all the trees through the Landcare, and actually the footy club come out and helped plant them that year. You've got no idea how it is now. You can't see where they've battered the creek in. The erosion, like flicked the erosion up, and the other side we've done direct seeding, and they'd be 10 or 12 foot high, the trees and shrubs and that there. And you can compare the two, like the direct seed of one side, tube sock the other side.
At Tony Broidy's property on Forest Road, we saw a landscape being managed in its three parts: trees on the hills, perennial pasture on the slopes, and gullies that are fenced out and revegetated. In these eroded gullies, rabbit numbers were out of control when Landcare commenced, with counts showing 60 to 80 rabbits in one small gully system. With habitat control works, calicivirus and ongoing maintenance, these numbers are around 2 to 5 per gully now.
On top of the hill there, we planted in 89 and we planted in 3 times, and they're rabbit-proof fenced. The rabbits still kept getting in and eating them. And it was finally in 96 when suddenly the rabbits went with the calicivirus that we realised that's the reason we can't grow trees on the Ben More Range. We just can't get them to survive. The rabbits are just so bad and you just can't. But you know, Robert's right, like this, the paddock as we drove in, for every 7 or 8 rocks there was a stump on the ground that was just covered in stumps, and of course every one of them, you kicked every one of them, there's 2 or 3 rabbits under it, and you know, cleaning that up was almost the first thing you had to do to actually get a farm.
On Jones Road, we looked over the high productivity soils of Glenbrae. Here we could see how the weed work commenced in 1994 had reduced gorse to 5% of its original scale and 40% of its original range. Significant corridors of native vegetation running from property to property can be clearly seen from here, part of the 500,000 trees that have been established at Lexton so far. We continue to maintain a native tree revegetation rate around 40 hectares per year, supported by state and federal government funding programs, plus the group's own resources. On Saturday night we celebrated as a community and with some very special friends who have helped us in this journey so far. From a hillside at Barry and Fran Herbertson's property, we watched the sun set over the Ben More Range before returning to the Herbertsons' woolshed for a great evening together.
Well, what sort of message would you like to give people watching this video about Landcare?
It's very heartwarming. It's very community-minded. You meet lots of like-minded people, and if you're not converted, their enthusiasm will help convert you. And it's good for your thinking. You could be a modest member in the sense of planting some trees and shrubs, each according to their own. But the larger work needs to be done by the farmers, obviously. But everyone's got a role to play in this. It's as we've noticed, global warming, which seems to be here to stay. It's increasingly important that we respect the earth that we've got.
Well, we're landowners in the district, and well, my mother started years ago, almost when Lexton Landcare first started up, and we had wide open paddocks, windswept, and it probably the key was when we were shearing, and we had a real hard time with shorn sheep, and there was just no shelter. That's how we probably got started on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some special guests here this evening that I'd like to acknowledge. Tony Broidy, Anne Broidy, Del McAvale, Geraldine Smith, Robert Sewell, Terry Simpson, Peter Hale, Pamela Hammond.
goods come probably by having groups of people that you could call on for a rabbit control program, or like the gorse. It's pretty hard if you're trying to get rid of a particular problem and the seed stock's just coming in from your neighbours. So Landcare's probably one of its big achievements has been that a rabbit problem's a community problem, a weed problem's the same, soil erosion's the same. You can be, if you've got gully erosion and you've got a hill above you that's pouring water off like a tin roof, and your neighbour couldn't give a stuff about it, you're never going to fix that problem yourself. So probably that's been, to me, the key of Landcare has been the fact that there's been ready-made groups there to respond to different needs.
We are very proud of our work to date and look forward to continuing to change our landscape for the better.